first one was just the trial run.
The trial run, exactly. And then, yeah, like little setup here. I have my bedroom, and then I have like a lot of art stuff. Just like, I feel like it's kind of my like. Is it recording?
It is recording.
Oh wow, okay.
We're live.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yay!
Yay!
So my name is Kelli McGrath, and I am a designer, photographer, artist, documenter. I would say like all those kind of like things. I really feel like it starts with like documentation is like who I feel like I am. I'm from New Jersey, so the East Coast. Grew up there in a really small rural town with my parents, my brother. And then I moved out here right after I graduated from Pratt Institute with a BFA in interior design.
Okay.
So yeah, and I've been here since I guess 2021, I think, August 2021. So like almost 3 years.
Okay.
So yeah.
Lovely.
I went to school at Pratt Institute, and I loved it. Like I love Brooklyn so much. I studied interior design, and I guess like I was always like super creative. Like as a kid, like I just like loved making things and like doing whatever. And then I think I ultimately was like, well, I love space, and I love thinking about people in space, and I liked, because I feel like in school I always loved like the logical kind of like data behind like science and math, but I wasn't like, I didn't want to be like a mathematician or something. Like I was way too creative to like do something in that realm, I felt like. So I really liked the idea of doing something like interior design or architecture that kind of combined both like the logical and analytical side. So went to Pratt, and it was like extremely conceptual, which I enjoyed. Like it got like my mind thinking about like so much of just like what space is, and like circulation through space, and like a lot of like the books in this space like came from like my undergrad experience of just like really I just got so into like reading about like different people and how they think about space. Like Bernard Schumi is like super cool, and thinking about like sequencing of space. Anyway, I can ramble on and on, but I feel like that like opened my eyes to like theory and kind of just thinking a bit at like a wider scale of like what like the everyday is, especially. My senior thesis was about the everyday and how we can augment surfaces to then like kind of elevate the everyday experience. And I love that. I felt like the culmination of like what I'm interested in now, it just kind of keeps like stringing along. And I feel like they really responded well to, like the school really responded well to like my just like, I don't know, my drive and my like interest kind of beyond like the look and feel, and a bit more of just like how someone feels.
Right.
Yeah, I can get into that a bit more too. I'm not sure if this is like, but basically like I didn't realize, but I don't have a mind's eye. It's called like aphantasia.
Yes.
And I didn't know that like anyone could see things in their minds, but so I went through like, I graduated school like not knowing like other peers could like see their designs in their head. And I was like, whoa, that's like awesome. But I think it made sense why like my work was always very different from everyone else, because it was like it was about like the feeling of the space. And I think that's like still like very aligned with like what I'm interested in right now too. It's a little bit less how it looks, but it's a lot more about like that feeling, because that's what I think about. Like I still close my eyes and like try to visualize the feeling, but it's not, it's just, everything is black in my mind. So I think that's where a lot of like my interest behind movement and feeling came from in school. So right now I work at an architecture and design firm called Gensler, and primarily I'm in the aviation studio. So I'm working on SFO at the moment, a bunch of different terminals, and I love it so much. I think it's like a really good way to kind of pair all my interests together. And I would say my role right now is a bit more on the analytical side, a little bit less on the creative side. I still get that creative time for sure. But I really like that. I think in my day-to-day, I like the balance of like coming home and like creating, like kind of creating for myself. And at work, I really like that I get to kind of use this like more planning mindset, or like kind of like use a different side of my brain that I think that I can like bring to like my work as well. And I love going on site. So we get to go on site walks and see the construction of, you know, the built environment. And to me, I get so inspired by that. There's this one artist, her name's Charlotte, Puzenak. I have one of her books over there, but she like uses a lot of kind of vents and like those kind of shapes that you see from like HVAC systems into her work. And like that to me is like the coolest thing ever. Like, because I don't know why I'm just like so inspired by the shapes that form in space during construction. And you don't see that day to day. Like there is so much behind these walls, and like all the studs and like how they're spaced like 16 inches apart or whatever it is. Like it just creates this amazing rhythm in the space. Like it's all hit. It's all hit. And I'm like, no, like there's so much beauty in that like process. And I love like that my job allows me to like go on site and see that process and document it. I take a lot of photos on there, and like the colors, like the graffiti of like someone just scratching on the wall like 16 plus or something, whatever it is. Like there would be all these weird markings that just like hide below the surface that you don't see. And I find that so fascinating. Or the colors of just some of the elements that like make up the building. It's just the coolest thing. And you know, of course I'm there to do my job and everything, but I will take some time to take those photos because I'm so inspired by just how things come together and are hidden, or what like by accident just gets shaped. Like there was this one time, so there's like a type of gypsum board that's purple. And I walked in and I saw a yellow fluorescent ladder against the purple gypboard, and I freaked out. I was like, oh my god, this like could not have been more perfect, you know? It's just like the colors that are created, the color combinations. Like I want to do at some point, like I think it's just, it inspires me already, but I think a project that I want to do in the future at some point is like really like thinking about all these systems and like thinking about like a way to like create a really cool like art project based off of that. And like what I see, and maybe it starts from the photographs, since like I don't really have that, like I don't know if I'll be able to totally like get back to that moment in my head, but I think like I'm trying to like document those moments that like I really get inspired by, to then like figure out how to like create something. And I think like my sketches, when I usually sketch like what's in front of me, like still life. I love just like sketching what's in front of me, because I think like I'm not like closing my eyes and like imagining something, but I think when I do kind of just sketch from like whatever, it's always like HVAC things or like conduit lines. Like I love electrical lines, and like all those like lines just go like it just creates these beautiful shapes. And anyway, so I would say but my experience so far at Gensler has been great. I would say I just love going on site. My day-to-day, I think the 9 to 5, I like that stability. Just kind of keeps me a bit grounded, I'd say. And I love my coworkers. They're all really, I don't know, I just feel like it's a pretty big company. It's the biggest like architecture company, so there's a lot of people.
There's 53 locations.
Yes, something like that. You like, probably know more than me. But there's a bunch, like all over the world. And I think there's like maybe 7,000 people, which is big for architecture. Usually they're like 100 or less people. So I think that it's nice because it gives me like a good variety of people to talk to and like learn from. And I find that I'm surrounded by people that are very like interested in my side projects, and other people have interesting side projects. And I feel like I'm surrounded by creative people that enjoy space just as much as I do, which is really cool. But then I get into my process. So I think it really starts from just being super aware of the present moment. So in high school, like freshman in college, sophomore in college, I got like really into like meditation, and my mom helped me with that a lot. Like a lot of my books in my room are mostly like kind of spiritual, kind of Buddhist books, and just very like in the moment, present day, like meditation type exercises. And I think that helped me become incredibly aware of just like all the beauty that's around me at like any given moment. And I just started like I don't know, like even right now I'm just like looking out the window, I'm like there's just so much like there or within the space, or just so much appreciation for like everything, that I think my artwork is very much inspired by like what I see, and then I translate that to art or like some sort of visual through photography or through needlepoint or whatever medium it is. I think it always just the first step is just what I see.
Yeah.
Something that inspires me, like obviously light and space, but also like this project, like the window shades project was just from a moment when I was walking home from work and I just spotted this building that I passed at that time, 100 times probably. But I looked up, I was like, oh my gosh, that's an amazing, it felt like felt like a weaving, the facade of the high rise just felt like a weaving to me. I was like, I need to do something with this. So I snapped a picture, went home, and then it was that was February. And then in June, I sat down, I was like, okay, what am I going to do with this? And I looked at it and I was like, okay, blah, blah. And then I just noticed, I zoomed in, I loved the rhythm of the window shades. And then that's what made me realize, I'm like, wait, I can translate the window shade to a color. And I think that that really gets me excited when it's something that I could document over time. So I think a lot of my art also is around something that I could see the differences between day to day. And kind of I don't know, I think just to show, I don't know what the reasoning necessarily is behind that, but I think it's to show the human interaction or the light and that just the time and space and how it's affected by all these things. So I really love working with textiles, as I think throughout my entire life, I've always loved it started with knitting, and then my grandma got me into needlepoint when I was down visiting her in Florida or something, when I was 12. And then just tried everything, and I just love working with my hands. So I couldn't just sit down on the couch with my family when I was in high school without doing something, So I think it just started with this desire to be making something all the time. But then, I think I realized with the window shades project, it started with the color pencil sketch that's on my fire above the mantle. And it started with that one. And then I was like, well, what other mediums could I use? And I think I used that sketch as a basis for experimentation with other mediums that I might not have tried before. And it was this amazing catalyst for so even this is just a fused glass thing that I tried, and I was just oh yeah, why not? I don't know, just kind of gritted nature, and I was okay, cool. I mean, I could try this again. It's not perfect, but I love it. I think it was a fun way to just experiment with different mediums. And then needlepoint, though, since I felt really comfortable with needlepoint as a medium going into it, I was this is what I want the main medium to be, if that makes sense. Because I feel I practiced it enough to be no, I don't think this one needs to be experimentation medium. This could just be a medium that I could give to the world, or if they wanted it. And so then I started with the needle points, and I think it was such a cool experience. The first one I did on the right, the colors are slightly different than the one on the left, because it's, I don't know, I took so much, picking out those thread colors, I've never spent so much time wanting to perfect something, because it takes so long. Point just takes so long. And I'm I want to get these colors right, and I don't know, I wasn't totally happy with some of the color, and I love color theory and love thinking about color pairings and stuff. So I think that was a really interesting process of just figuring that out with thread, because I feel it's a bit easier to I don't know, color pencil or whatever, it's quicker, you could test it out. But when you see it all together with the needlepoint, I actually found it's rewarding to see it at the end. But I think in the beginning I was just wait, what are these colors gonna look like together, and how are they gonna work? And I think that's what I love about even the weaving behind you. I don't know, I think that I used that heddle loom there, which I've never tried before. So I took a weaving class, and it got me to try it. And I'm really rambling right now, but I loved working with that loom, and I want to do more with it, but I think I need to give myself time to learn the skill, and also maybe find access to a bigger loom, because I really I have the idea in my mind, but I don't know yet how to create what's in my mind. So I figure I'm starting with that, which is just 2 colors. But I'm how do I make that in a weaving? I want to do that. I see it at the scale of that, in all the colors and all the grid, because that was the building that I saw the building. Like, it's a weaving. It's not a needlepoint, but the needlepoint was like a way for me to test it at the scale that I'm comfortable with. Yeah. But I think like a long-term goal would be to like kind of figure out how to make this into a weaving. Yeah. And I think that'd be super awesome. And I'm very inspired by just like when two like colors kind of come together and like they kind of create the third and fourth color in a weave. I find that really interesting. There's this weaving mill in Chicago that they will post. I don't know how they do it. Like I want to go. They have open houses. I'm like, I think I have to book a plane ticket to go to Chicago just for this mill to understand that they have these grids. And it's like, how are you doing it? Is it like a machine? Like I want to do it by my hand though. Like I don't want like some machine to do it for me. Yeah. So anyway, I guess it's like a skill that obviously I'm going to continue learning throughout my life, but I'm trying to take it step by step. And I got like really like I realized the hard part about the weaving was that I couldn't visualize at all like what was going to happen. Like when because the process is interesting. You warp the thread, blah blah blah, with the one way, and then you weave the other way. And I had no idea like how much like I had already weaved, and because you kind of circle it up so you don't know really. So what I realized was I had to be I just got grid paper and I just sketched everything out. I said how many inches I would do of this, and I kept track of it because like, and that's what then I created behind you. But my first iterations were not good in my opinion. And like, but I don't know why I put all this pressure on myself. I was like, oh, it has to be like amazing right away. Like this is the medium like I want to do, and like this. And then I was like, Kelly, like I'm still learning. Like it's okay. So very much in the learning stage of that. But the needlepoint has been good for like kind of like the trial. It's very slow. But I'm working on a different color combination. I worked for a coworker on it. It was like really nice. She saw it one day. We were taking the BART over to the terminal to a site walk, and she's like, Kelly, like I want that. I'm like, what? Like it was the first time anyone ever like wanted to like commission artwork of mine. I was like, oh my god. So I just gave her 4 of them for like the needlepoint in a different color scheme, and I think that was super exciting experience because I got to go to her space and see what colors would work for her space. And it was related to space and color, and she's hard to please. So I was like, wow, like the fact that she wanted them and she was happy, I was like, okay, this was like amazing practice. But I also think it made me realize like, I also love making for myself too. Yeah. Like I'm extremely grateful for her interest, but it was also like, I think I create for myself to like, I guess, prove that the idea in my head, since I can't see it, is something, if that makes any sense. Like I needed to do that just because I needed to get it, like I needed to see it, if that makes any sense. So I think that's the main reason why I create a lot. It's just because I need to prove to myself, is it any good? Right. So. Well, yeah, first I can even just speak to the color scheme. Like I think like I always ask people this question because I think it's very interesting. What is their favorite color combination? Because I think everyone's like, oh yeah, my favorite color is blue, like whatever. But I'm like, no, what is your favorite color combination? You know, because I think that's just like, it's so interesting to think about like colors together, and I don't know, it's just fascinating. Yeah. So anyway, I think it just happened super naturally to pick the green and purple scheme because it's just my favorite color combination. Like it's just, you can't go wrong with that. In my opinion, like my whole thesis book was purple and green. It was so like out there, but I loved it. Yeah. And I think it's just like a fun like pairing. It just became like me in a color, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And then the orange I like is like the pop, because basically what each color means and kind of how I came to that was when I was studying the photo, I was like, well, you know, you could see the repetition of the window shade. So light green is fully open. So if like kind of like what the windows are right now, they're just fully open, and then if they're almost fully open, so before the halfway point, then it gets the light purple. And then midpoint, which doesn't happen very often, is orange, and that's why I chose the orange, because it kind of stands out amongst the rest. It's just like this it's so cool when you see like halfway. I'm like, wow, I don't know, to me it's like awesome, because like no one's ever really all that perfect with it. So I was like, oh, that one's really halfway. So that kind of stood out as like a unique point. Yeah. And then the dark purple is almost fully closed, and then fully closed is dark green. Okay. So there's five colors, and then I'll just go back to that building. Because it's right around my work. So I'll go back to the building every month, take the photo, go home, translate it. And now I do it in Illustrator first, just to kind of like get it to have a digital version as well, which I didn't do for a while. So I was like, oh, I don't want to do digital, but I'm like, no, it's kind of really nice actually. It's quicker and it allows me to just have it as a basis for the needlepoint and the color pencil. So I'll do the color pencil and then the needlepoint. I'm only doing 4 needle points right now, which are going to be on the solstices, like the actual solstice of each one. So I'm pretty excited about that. So I took the photo of March 21st, but I'm waiting to do that until this other project's done. But yeah, so I'm kind of excited. So I'll have that one and then I'll do the needle point. So kind of looking forward to that. And of course I can always do more, but I think I want to like have some sort of like higher meaning for the needle point, if that makes sense, since it does take so much longer.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then, so as you kind of explained, so each one's different from the next, but it relates directly to the calendar year.
Yes, and the time. So I always put the date and time, because the time, like everything, even a sketch I do, like I put the time, because I think it's so important. Yeah. You know, people put this to the date, but I'm like, guys, the time, especially if it's like a still life with like the light happening, it's just, to me, it's, you need to. I mean, it's just kind of going back to that whole meditation thing. I think that was always my subject, was just finding so much beauty in how the light affects interiors and hits the architecture and just completely changes an environment. Like I feel like I can be content just sitting in like a space with like nice lighting all day and just like seeing that pattern change. I don't know what it is. I'm just like completely drawn to it. I'm a Leo and like I like the sun and like I just feel like I don't know. I used to meditate, or not that I used to, I still do, but there's this one phrase that I don't always use right now, but maybe I should. It's like a mantra of like, I'm lightness itself. And like, I love that. Like, it's a really good way of like staying present and just kind of like feeling like a lot of meditation also revolves around kind of like seeing like gold light kind of come through you, or like white light surrounding you is a good way to cleanse. And I think I'm just like, I'm so like, I feel like my soul just loves light. Like it's just, I'm drawn to it and I don't have it just brings me to the present and I'm just so inspired by it and I want to document and like I want to capture that like essence, I guess. And moving to the city, I found that windows were like a big like windows and the light combined just were amazing. Like the quality of light in San Francisco is like the best I've ever experienced. Like, I don't know, it's just amazing with the atmosphere of the clouds and how it reacts with the bay and the temperature. It's just amazing. I feel like, of course I was inspired by it in Brooklyn too, but it was just, I would consider it a bit stale, if that makes any sense. It just felt like very high contrast and just stark. But here there's like these, like, it just feels very subtle. It can go in and out every now and then, maybe with, you know, the fog, who knows. But I love the quality of light in the bay specifically. And I think if anything, it like has helped me a lot with my projects. I would say the Alcatraz book, that was like a big one on like documenting like the atmosphere of the light in the bay. Just because it just constantly is changing. It's never just like a sunny day here. You know, it's just like a mix, and it's like that's cool. Because even when I was living up north of the bridge, it barely had all this change and stuff. But I think once I moved here, I was like, oh yeah, like I don't know, it just helped me kind of like get into this document mode where it wasn't about documenting just a pretty picture of light. It was like, how does that light change throughout the day? So even like the building across outside the window, I love how the light changes on like with the fire escapes and stuff. And just kind of like, oh, how does that change across the day? Sometimes it filters in and out. It's never consistent. So I don't know. I just think it's like a really cool medium to document because it's just this ephemeral quality. So it's like, how do you document that?
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah, I would say primarily David Hockney is like my favorite artist. I would say for like his like appreciation of the everyday. I like think that he like stems from a lot of just documenting what's in front of him, and I think he probably as an artist I find him the most like Yes, I love him. I have like a whole like dedicated area of books on him just in my one area. And then I think like I group color theory in general, like maybe not like one person, but I group that kind of category together. So I have like that little part of my bookshelf for color theory. So definitely like Joseph Albers too, and Annie Albers for sure. And then for space, I would say Bernard Tschumi is the theorist that I feel like just always kind of come back to. And then this guy, I'm probably gonna say his name wrong because it's French, but like Jorge Perec or something.
Okay.
Oh my god, it's so good. Just like the elevating the like the banal basically, and he has this one. I love it. Actually, I had to read it for school, and I'm very grateful because it led me to other of his books. But it was like the species of places and other pieces. And it was just kind of went into it's just he talks about the everyday essentially, and I'm very like I love his writing because it's kind of insane. I have this one behind you. I think it's like an everyday life manual or something. It's that big thick one on the top like right.
Okay.
And with that guy's face. And oh my gosh, it's hard for me to get through it because I think it would be amazing for someone that has like a really good mind's eye.
Yeah.
But because like he goes in basically what I think is super cool is he'll take a section cut through a building, or like in the book, he takes a section cut through a building and then talks about what everyone's doing at a specific, like the one time a day. So if we did that for this building, what am I doing versus the person below us versus the person below us at that same exact time of day on like a random Sunday afternoon. And he goes into immense detail explaining what every little piece looks like in the room, and it's insane. But I think like there's some commentary on that of like just the everyday and like kind of what that means. And I'm actually just I got this book, I found it a bookstore the other day called Everyday Matters, and I was like so excited because like that's like what I love. It's just kind of like looking at that, what other people just think is, they just pass by without looking at because there's so much beauty in it. So yeah, those are, I feel like those 3 or 4, but then like publications like the Apartamento magazine, that really inspires like my Portrait of Home series and things like that. I have some photographers that I follow on Instagram, but I would say I'm a little bit less inspired by, I don't really get a lot of inspiration from like what other people are doing now, if that makes any sense. I don't know, I think it helps me just kind of stay in my own like little like world of observation. It's just kind of not looking too much at what other people are doing. Obviously I love going to museums and stuff, but I don't really look at it as like a way of like, oh, I want to try that. It's more just like, oh, it's really cool, I gotta learn something, but I keep it like separate. I think I like the idea of learning from not just artists and architects, but also definitely like people just like writers and just the everyday. Question. I think the first thing I really want to get through like a year of documenting this, so I have a few more months to go, so that'll be really exciting to see like 12 color pencil on here. I think photography, I want to build that a bit more actually. So similar to the Alcatraz book, I'm extremely grateful to have a nice view of like the bay and the bridge, Golden Gate Bridge. So I'm planning to do another book series on that, but like trying to expand it a bit more with like different views and like figuring that out. So I'm excited to continue that documentation. And then, I think slowly building up more of the mediums, but I also feel really good about kind of just continuing my like journey with the needle, getting the solstices, those down before starting a new, like the weaving I think will come with time. Like I don't know if that's necessarily next. It like might be, who knows, but I'm kind of just like, I know I want to do that, but I want to give it a lot of like time and intention. Like I want to figure out how I can get like a really big loom. Like I want to learn that, blah, blah, blah. Whereas that might not happen right away. I think for me, the Portrait of Home series and like Portrait of Place, like kind of really building that photography and that documentation up, I think is like kind of my current standpoint. I really like that. Of course I'm going to continue working on like my other visual medium work, but I think for some reason I'm like really excited about building like this like big catalog of like the Portrait of Home like documentation. So that's kind of like a mix of things, but
lovely.
Exciting. Thank you.
Well, we did it.
Cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. I figured
Wow.
now would be like a good